fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Visit our website, whonewpodcast.com, email us at whonewpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter and on Facebook at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast. Today's episode is episode 7 of season 3, 42. The Doctor and Martha respond to an interstellar distress call, which leaves Martha burning in the cold of space. This episode is written by Chris Chibnall, directed by Graham Harper, and it originally aired on the 19th of May, 2007, and was watched by 7.41 million viewers.
Fun fact, Chris Chibnall, the author of this episode, he's the one who is going to be Doctor Who's showrunner when Stephen Moffat leaves in 2018.
And he got this job from doing Torchwood episodes.
Yes.
Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hi, this is Kelsey.
Hello, this is Auburn.
I'm Josh.
Hi, this is Brian.
And I am Heather, the special guest.
Welcome back Heather.
Thank you.
Arlene could not join us.
Yeah, who needs it?
After receiving a distress signal from the SS Pentallian, the TARDIS arrives on the overheated spaceship. The Doctor and Martha go through a hatch which closes behind them, locking the TARDIS in a deadly heated section of the ship. They meet the crew of the Pentallian and learn that the engines have recently stopped and they have 42 minutes before burning up in the nearby sun.
Oh, 42 minutes. Again.
You missed that one?
I did. I totally did.
Instead of the normal credit sequence, I want this to be the following events take place between 1 p.m. and 1:42.
Has anyone put a timer on the episode?
It's not completely accurate, but it's as best as they could get.
It's pretty close.
All right.
Before we get going some more, I'll just list off the characters because there's so many on the ship.
Oh, yeah.
There's Kath McDonnell, Riley Vashti, Orin Scannell, Hal Corwin, Dev Ashton, Abby Lerner, and Irina Lesak.
There's that many?
There's that many.
Well,
For a while.
Yeah.
That shot that reveals where the location of the spaceship is the longest special effect shot that they've had.
Oh, wow.
I wonder, it was really long.
Yes.
As well as the ship was.
Mm-hmm. And the CG door closing, I thought that was pretty good, like a la Star Wars, like the blast doors closing. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, that was CG?
Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's pretty good.
In the beginning? I can't
Yeah, very
remember.
beginning.
When Abby is running that
I
one?
think so.
Okay.
I like the doctor's upgrading Martha's phone. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say real quick, I miss my Razor phone. I really like Razor phones. They're nice.
Yeah, more on that phone later, but it's a completely useless phone, I will say that much. I mean, eventually.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like the gimmicky title of this 42. It's more taking me out of the actual show, going, oh, we have 42 minutes to fill, and we're doing this. And it doesn't really tie well in with the show. Yes, they have 42 minutes.
Well, then you can think of it as the Douglas Adams reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I could.
The name of the episode is The Answer to Everything.
The fact that hour-long shows are 42 minutes, yes.
Right.
Oh. Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
That's why they made it 42.
Oh.
I think all
I
this is
figured they
lost.
made it 42 so that they could solve the thing in 42 minutes and still have 3 minutes left over for
Yeah, but
wrap-up.
they could have chosen any number of.
But that is what
within
they
42.
did. That's why they picked that. Because there is the tag.
In the credits.
There's also the scene in the beginning where he's giving her the phone, or upgrading the phone, and then the tag at the end.
But,
it's also not exact, but they wanted to get it as close as they could. And with editing, like they wrote the script, and that script is referencing 42 minutes, but they're still going to edit the show.
Right.
So they got it as close as they possibly could.
That's more than I didn't even. 42.
Let's not even get started with the Battlestar Galactic episode called 33.
33.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that's more about the story.
And it's not 133, if I recall, right? Like, don't. It's
Yeah,
like
it's every
it's
30.
every
33.
30. There's lots of 33s.
Just think of it as Burn With Me.
Yeah,
That
there
could have
you
been a
go.
title for it.
Or Here Comes the Sun.
Do-do-do-do.
Yeah, that would have cost too much money to.
They head down to engineering, and the doctor notices they are still using an energy scoop, which has been outlawed. The captain tells them they've scheduled for an upgrade after this mission. The engines didn't just stop. They have been sabotaged. The auxiliary engines are at the front of the ship behind 29 password-protected hatches. The passwords are randomly generated trivia questions set up by the original crew. Riley Vashti says he knows most of the passwords, but it's a two-person job. Martha agrees to go with him.
I love how this episode starts right out of the gate. As soon as they get out of there, there's people running at them. There's a certain sense of urgency because there's only 42 minutes. And then also, too, there's that element of the doctor, like, who are you? But then all of a sudden he's taking charge and saying everything, and everyone quickly starts following him. Like, they're listening to him, and then they have this look like, why am I listening to him? Who is he? But they keep following him, and I really like that the sense of urgency is like, I don't have time to doubt this person who doesn't seem to have any doubt.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, this whole episode kept reminding me of Impossible Planet, and this beginning especially because once again, the TARDIS has landed in a chamber or a room that immediately we can't have access to for the remainder of the episode.
Well, and also remember in Impossible Planet where he said, "Oh, look, these are kits. The station is built as a kit," and it's like, well, this looks kind of
The same.
the same, you know. So it's like, okay, but I kind of agree with you. It's a little redundant.
Yeah.
But it does the job. It just, it puts them because he's true. It's, like he says, that's our lifeboat. Like if they could get to the TARDIS, this whole episode is not even happening.
Yeah.
I think when this episode starts, it has the same feel as many an episode where they land on a spaceship. Yeah. And I mentioned before how I always feel kind of like when an episode starts that way. And I did feel that way about this one too, but for me personally, it redeems itself, and that's kind of what intrigued me about it. Is it started off as something like, I'm probably not going to be a huge fan of this, and then I feel very differently when it's over.
And then a little more the deadlock seals so that they can't use the sonic to get through the password protected doors. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a real throwaway line, but it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the whole gimmick of the trivia.
Yeah.
You did just discuss that, right? You did just.
Yeah.
I love that gimmick. I think it's great. It's very character oriented.
It's obvious that they didn't think they would ever have to use it.
Yes.
Because he thought nothing of the fact that the same crew wasn't even here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously some of them were still there. What's your favorite color is a line that comes up later, but
although having the auxiliary controls in the front of the ship past all these things,
doors,
who would write that? I mean, it is one of those things.
A plot device.
Necessary challenge that the actors need to overcome.
Right. Well, it's like the fan in the episode with Jabe.
End of the world.
The End of the World episode.
It's the same thing.
So is the trivia why you chose this episode, Heather?
it is not why I chose this episode, but it's very fitting, being that I am a trivia quiz mistress. And that is how I met all of you. But...
Did you know the answer of who was more, Elvis or the Beatles?
I did not. I'll be honest with you. But I have thought about asking that at a trivia game. The problem is we don't do multiple choice.
Pre-download.
Pre-download, which in the time frame of this would have just been like, what's pre-download? But
yeah,
whatever. That's a whole other thing.
I like how they call it classical music.
Yes, I like it when they do that. And just also real quick, he does say Beatle.
He does.
But that's also a callback to Help, the Beatles movie, because Leo McKern all throughout that episode refers to the group as the Beatles. Oh, Beatle. So.
Also, before we move on, I want to make a quick note about Martha. Right off the bat, Martha's like, I'll go. I volunteer. Like, as I think it's a medical career thing, doctors, nurses, they work extremely well under pressure. And you could see, like, Martha really switched on really quick and did not hesitate at all, which I thought was very good for her character.
Because at first, before they have a plan and she has a job to do, when she's going and looking out the window and they're like, we can't get back to the TARDIS, she is a bit freaked out.
Well,
she's like, whoa. But, we're stuck here. But then, it does turn on when it's like, okay, there's something to do.
The switch.
Let's get out of this.
It's at that moment where I think this episode takes a different vibe than the last number of episodes. It's not as jovial.
And also to Martha's strength, when they first get out of the room where the TARDIS has landed, she's the one that introduces them to the crew. When the crew comes up and says, "Who are you?" It's Martha that says, "I'm Martha, this is the doctor."
Right.
So she is working under pressure. Like, it is pressure right away.
Yeah.
And she's quick thinking and ready with an answer, even though the doctor kind of was off
His
It was
game?
like off his game, or yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too because the doctor is making decisions like opening doors that shouldn't be open, and he's not like testing anything.
It's true. He got blown back by
Yeah,
that door.
that was very undoctor-like.
And he is pretty, in this scene, after this, not so much, he is very silly. He's the silly doctor. He's joking with them. He's making, quips and things like that. And you get a real good sense of that part of the doctor before everything gets serious.
Yeah.
But he is also trying to help them and rally them, because he does you're defeated before you start. Where's your Dunkirk spirit? And
What is that a reference to?
The Christopher Nolan movie coming out.
In theaters now by the
Is
time
it
this
about
comes
that
out.
battle?
He'd already
I think
seen
so,
it.
yeah.
At the be-
So,
Oh, yeah.
right.
At the beginning of World War II,
Well,
or near the beginning of World War II,
Beginning, yeah.
the British forces and the French forces got pushed back to the beach at Dunkirk, and they had nowhere to go, and they were going to be slaughtered. And the British,
The civilians.
civilian boats,
Coast
they
Guard.
just came out of the wood.
No, civilians.
Civilians, yeah. Anybody who had a floating boat
Vessel.
just they just came out of the woodwork, and they crossed the channel, which was incredibly dangerous, and they just grabbed all the men off of the beaches and got them out of there because they were going to be slaughtered.
Right.
Spoiler alert. Jeez.
Yeah, I know.
Read some history.
All right, now we don't have to see the movie, okay? I know, I'm kidding.
Also, this is a very colorful episode. They use like every color that they can. It's
Mainly
great.
red.
No, it's
Yeah.
red's
No, there's reds, but then the highlight on the face is a different color.
It was yellowish.
And
a lot of yellow.
The
and then
escape pod's
blue.
blue.
And then in the med lab, there's greens on the wall. There's just a lot of color in this episode.
But red is the dominant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hot, signifying
Yeah.
heat,
I would say temperature.
warmth.
Wow. So,
Moving on. Captain McDonald receives an urgent call from Ashton in the med center, so she and the doctor hurry there. McDonald's husband, Corwin, has gone mad and is the one responsible for the sabotage. He keeps shouting that it burns, but he will not open his eyes. The doctor sedates him and notices that his body temperature is rising, along with abnormal energy readings. Corwin is finally placed in a stasis chamber, and Abby begins to run tests as the doctor, McDonald, and Ashton head back to engineering.
Would you say that he's mad as hell?
ew.
No, I would not.
They say his body temperature is at 100 degrees, and I'm like, so it's a mild fever.
Yeah.
And then I remember the Celsius.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. I mean, I've had 100-degree temperature before.
This is also where we have another Doctor Who Sherlock crossover, because the actress who plays Abby, the med tech, is a reoccurring character on Sherlock. She plays the detective who does not like Sherlock.
Calls him a freak.
Yeah.
But on here, I like that
Yeah.
the doctor says, okay, do this test, do this test. And
Yeah.
she's like already on it. It's like, oh, good for you. Okay.
And I,
You know what you're doing, and you're doing it well.
I like the way that she was looking at him, like she's like agreeing with him, but she keeps giving him this look, like, "Who are you and why?" And then at the end of the scene, she asks him who he is. But the fact that she's working with him and giving him this look of,
What are you here for?
yeah,
This crew is very receptive of them being there and very accepting.
they don't have
Probably
time not to.
because-
Be.
They don't have any
exactly.
time. Yeah.
It's hard not to make the correlation between Impossible Planet, Satan's
Oh,
Pit, in this
totally.
episode. I mean, like you said, you already had the separation from the TARDIS at the beginning. They've already had a celestial
Something,
object
yeah.
out there where they have the black hole or this as they're looking at it. I mean, and later on, there's a lot more.
But then you've got Kath in charge. A thing I see in Doctor Who a lot is that the captains are female. Like, that happens in so many episodes.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not sure if they do that intentionally.
They're probably used to having a queen.
Well, we had a king for a while there.
Yeah, but not
Not
while they had
lately.
television.
Yeah, that's true. But they all kind of remind me. That's one thing that makes them all seem very similar to me. And they're all very strong, and whether they're, Kath is a little bit off track here at the beginning, but eventually they're all very good leaders.
But
So-
it seems like her crew respect her.
Very much,
Yes.
especially Riley. Not Riley.
Right? No.
No,
Which one are you talking about?
Riley,
Scandal.
Scannel?
Scannel, yeah,
Scannel.
especially him.
in the Impossible Planet, they all had actual jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to know the characters a lot more than in this because of the time frame. Mm-hmm. And with this, even looking it up, you don't know what job they actually had. The only one you know, Abby, because she's in,
Med tech.
she has the like the scrubs type of outfit, so she is medical.
And
And
the-
the captain because of the title.
And the mechanic.
The
But you
mechanic.
see, it doesn't bother me because of the nature of this episode. This episode is a countdown clock from the beginning. So
Doesn't matter what your job is.
yeah,
This is your
everybody's
new job.
working to
Yeah.
fix things
we all,
quickly.
we all
and
have one job.
because like
Survive.
but we even said at the time with the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit is that, or at least I did, there was a lot of downtime in those two
Yeah.
episodes where they could just sit and talk exposition, and so you could learn a lot about the characters at that point because it was that downtime. There's no downtime in this episode.
Yeah, because this is only a one episode where
Yeah,
the other
it
were
is
two.
what it is.
I like it because, like you were saying, it is using a lot of elements from other things. Like there's even a possessed crew member, like in the Impossible Planet. But it starts off right off the bat, and I think that makes up for anything that's all too familiar.
Is the Impossible Planet theme in this episode?
No.
Okay.
But the
But
theme.
the-
Martha's theme is
Yeah.
Oh, what?
But the music is very similar, especially all those rises and the
The Doctor theme plays a lot throughout.
But the main theme here is all the strange creatures. That's the one. It sounds kind of like a driving. It sounds a really very similar to the 11th Doctor's theme.
I was just going
I
to
was-
say that.
Yeah.
I kept expecting it to go into the
But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
But I kept waiting for it, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, that's coming. Not today, but it's coming."
Someday.
Wow, that's blowing my mind because that's what I thought was the Doctor's theme.
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
But it's really similar to
Yes.
the 11th Doctor's
It's very
theme.
similar. That's why I sort of like and don't like the 11th Doctor's theme.
Oh, I love the 11th
But
Doctor's theme.
but I'm more on the like it
what is Tennant's theme?
because it carries over from Eccleston's the choir.
I need a little bit more.
That thing.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one. I couldn't.
We'll be getting
do
the
it.
soundtrack.
You already have it.
I missed that, by the way. I missed some of the old music.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
At the first locked door, Riley warns that they only get one shot at each answer. Martha attaches a manual opener to the hatch, and Riley correctly answers the first question, unlocking it. As they progress, Martha calls her mother for the answer to one of the questions.
I was surprised she didn't call Tish.
I was too, but they needed that because
Yeah.
of the plot point. But I was surprised.
Do you think that she called her mom because of the nature of the question with the music? Like, do you think Tish would have been listening to Elvis or the Beatles?
Well, I would have thought she would have called Tish before we found out what that plot reason was. I took it as Rose called her. It's like the companion calls their mom.
Yeah.
But then Martha just yells at her mom. Just do it.
Her
And
mom is non-cooperative.
Yes, her
But
mom is not.
her mom takes it as this is Martha, so Martha must be a yeller normally.
She
as
has
well.
to yell in order to get through to everybody.
And so it's not a shock. It's part of the dynamic of that family.
This goes back to what I was saying about the cell phone before. Like, this episode probably would not have worked if it were a few years later.
Right.
And Martha could have just Googled that on her own on the phone. It's a foreign concept anyway. You wouldn't.
And not too foreign because, I mean, Rose also was able to do some searches on it.
She had a brick phone too.
It was a small mobile. It wasn't large.
Well, I call it the brick because it was sturdy, not because it's big.
not the one of the big ones.
Yeah, not the big one. Yeah.
It's probably, and it's easier to look up something on a computer.
Yeah, that might have taken,
Then
especially when we have to go type each
Yeah,
number
yeah.
3 times to get a letter to come.
That's right.
Good times.
Were they? Through the intercom, Abby tells the doctor that Corwin's body is changing. Corwin gets up and speaks in an alien voice. Burn with me. The doctor, Captain McDonald, and Scannell run to the med unit. Corwin opens his eyes and incinerates Abby, and her scream is heard throughout the ship. He then puts on a welding helmet mask thing that blocks his eyes and leaves.
It's a welding helmet.
It's a welding mask because there's no back.
Oh.
See? When the doctor's group arrives, they see the residual outline of Abby's form burned into a wall. McDonald warns the crew that something has infected Corwin, and he has killed Abby. Corwin corners another crew member and incinerates her too.
Well, she is asking for it.
Literally. Just kill me. Okay.
I cannot stand her.
Which one?
I am like secretly happy that she gets vaporized.
Which one?
The mechanic's
Arena.
assistant.
Oh,
like
Arena.
you just heard 4 seconds ago that one of your crewmates was killed, and you're like, I have to do this and I have to do that, and it's like, just get some perspective, lady. Like, perfect. I don't feel that was the actress's fault, by the way. I'm sure it was written that way, but
The biggest thing that bothers me this whole episode is that when the Dr. Abby gets incinerated, her hair leaves just as much of an imprint as her body.
Oh, I love that. Because it's like, oh yeah, that's Abby.
It totally tells
her
you
silhouette.
it's her. Yes, it's her
Yeah.
silhouette. But just the science geek in me just is like, wow, that wouldn't leave an imprint at all.
It would burn right off. Yeah.
What's that?
It would burn the first thing to burn
Yeah,
off.
unless she had a lot of product.
No, then it would burn off faster because it has
Well,
the
it
product.
depends on the product. I mean, who knows what the future products are going to be like.
But as a science geek, I mean, his oxygen changed into hydrogen in his body. I mean, that's the whole fission that's happening.
Oh, is that what they said was happening?
Right. It's like, okay, that's going a bit far.
Well,
I
that's
think.
the phi part of sci-fi.
No, but it also
But you just said
references.
you don't like the shadow of her. So it's like, if you're really going to go for the science aspect.
It's about like the horns on the Satan.
No,
you
no,
know,
Oh yeah.
No,
that one.
Because I thought the line saying that his cells were turning to hydrogen was clever because that's what would be primary in the sun, and so a living sun would primarily have hydrogen. So it's like, oh, that's clever, and hydrogen burns. Of course, it makes no sense, but again, that's the fiction in science fiction.
I'm actually a little upset at the doctor in this episode because I think he took too long to figure out what was happening, personally. I mean, right away, he knew that something was up because they weren't telling him the whole story. They thought that they were the police when they first, like, if
Oh,
you
yeah, I
were,
was wondering
if
about
nothing
that.
shady was going on, why would your first assumption be, are you the police?
Oh, I took that as
And
that. Are you the
then-
police? Are you here to help us? That's
Yeah,
how I took it.
Maybe the first watch through, I thought that,
yeah,
but
'cause
the
of the Mayday.
second watch
You're
through,
right.
I was
'Cause of the
like,
Mayday. They sent out a Mayday.
right, but...
But now that you mention it, I haven't thought about it that way until you just mentioned it, and that's a good point.
No, I always thought about it the way Kelsey thinks about it.
Because even the
We
captain
agree.
was looking at Riley when he was mentioning the scoop, and they're both looking, oh, here, something's up and trying to hide
and then
it.
the scoop comes up, and the doctor's even like, haven't those been outlawed? And then he finds out that this guy's cells are being turned into hydrogen, and you're falling towards a sun. And I just feel like the doctor would piece this all together a lot quicker.
we did beg her to, not that she knew the answer at that point, but he did say,
You have to
tell me something. Like, you have to tell me. I feel like he was a little off this whole episode.
Yeah.
He was.
It was
not on
hot.
his game.
Yeah, it was hot.
You've been in Florida humidity. It's hot, man. You can't think straight after a while.
It's true, but I agree with you on that. It's a little frustrating. But I think, on the other hand, I think it gave Martha
Yeah.
time to shine. Like, this is Martha's day. She won this
Yeah.
day.
And I think that's why I accept the doctor's inconsistency, maybe, is that Martha comes to the forefront. It's more about her.
And I really only see that stuff after the fact that
Yeah.
you've mentioned it. Like, when you don't know what's happening, it all makes sense in that regard.
The episode is specifically a countdown clock, so it is like there's only 42 minutes. And like you said, we were thinking about it after the fact.
Right.
Whereas nobody in this episode has time to reflect.
Okay. I think Kath has it the most difficult of anyone because, first of all, it's her husband that's sabotaging the ship and killing people. And I think for a minute, yes, she doesn't want to accept that. But ultimately, she does. And very quickly, with all things considered.
And she is the captain, so she takes the responsibility of the whole ship and everybody on board.
Yeah. And then future things that I won't mention yet happen where she does take a pause to sort of revert. But ultimately, every time she back turns, it only takes her a minute to. She recovers quickly,
And she's a captain.
and she's going through more probably than anyone else because that is her husband. So
And possibly the reason the doctor's not going as fast as you think he should or usually does is because it is set in a real-time 42 minutes ideal. Where most of the other episodes, you do have, space gaps or time gaps where, something
has
happened.
time to
They took
figure it
time to
out.
get to some place. Right. So I think that helps you.
I also don't think he believes her. I don't.
Oh,
think-
he doesn't believe her.
Yeah.
No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
doesn't believe her, so why is he buying her?
Because I think
nothing's wrong.
Because I think right now in that moment,
There's no time.
There's too many other
Right,
things that
right.
has to happen. It's like I'll figure that out at step 10. Right now, we have to get through step
Right.
2 through 9 to get to step 10.
And it is, she's lying about one thing, but not about this.
Right.
She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know what infected her husband. She knows that what they did was illegal, and that's when all this stuff started, but she doesn't know what is really going on. She's being truthful. So I think that's something the doctor does see going,
it's
you're hiding
confusing,
something, but I don't think it's to this. So what is happening?
The doctor tells McDonald that the parasite is too strong and there is no saving her husband. Corwin finds Ashton, but instead of killing him, he infects him. Ashton goes after Martha and Riley, who hide in an escape pod. Martha calls the doctor for help, but he arrives too late. Ashton has ejected the pod. The doctor and Martha look at each other as it heads towards the sun.
This is a great moment.
This is one of my favorite moments in the whole entire series.
They discussed it on the commentary how there is no audio. It's just silence. And they were like, that was a good choice
That was an excellent choice.
because they had stuff in there before.
And this is also the first time you see Martha lose her stuff.
Yeah, she really loses it too.
Like
She's
it's the
screaming.
first time where she's panicked, and that I think the fact that Martha has never panicked, she's always held it together. When you seeing her be like that gave it that much more like, oh no, like something is wrong in it. I think it has a huge emotional impact because of that.
And then in my opinion, the first real time we see the doctor being a little more emotional towards her than we've ever seen him be.
Yeah.
Like you can tell he's really distraught at her, and he keeps saying, I'll save you. He says it 5-6 times.
And then she says,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like she's letting him down.
Right.
She let him down because she's the one. She's always in control of stuff. And
Which is so sad.
so sad.
And then I see the doctor saying, I'll save you, multiple times convincing himself that he will save her.
Definitely.
Good.
himself.
What if you said it 42 times?
I like the tug of war that goes on before the pod gets jettisoned. I really like the fact that I'm jettisoning the pod. No, I'm stopping the pod. I jettison the pod. No, I'm stopping the pod. Because to me, that would seem more realistic. You would have controls of the pod inside the pod and outside the pod. And so they're both fighting back and forth. And I like that because it is kind of in direct response to, the controls. I can't control the pod because the controls are in the airlock.
Right.
And I also like, too, how every time the bad guy got the upper hand, it was because of something different that happened. Like he punched it, or then he did something else. He overloaded it. It wasn't just like one of them beating the other at pressing buttons. It wasn't
That's
just the same.
ultimately how he won that tug of war.
Yeah.
Was,
And at this point, we have 2 ticking clocks almost. We have the one overall, and then we have now the pod thing going on.
And I did get a big kick out of that. The safety in that particular scene that seemingly was the safest place on the ship was blue.
Yes.
Yes.
I kept thinking of the Impossible Planet, and this would be the ending of the first episode.
Yeah.
In the other episodes, we talked about, would they be a good companion because we got to know them better and we got more information from them, and they became important to us. Still, these give us some information, but they're not as important, the other characters.
I really like...
But it seemed like this would be the spot where you then leave. This would be the cliffhanger.
You're right.
I'm a huge character development person. Like, if a movie doesn't have character development, then I probably hate it. But having so much of that in this series, having this one intense, fast-paced episode where you didn't have time. If every episode was like this, I probably wouldn't be a big fan of the show.
I agree.
But having this one exception that really get your heart rate going, I love this episode. I mean, I'm the one. I told you guys that this is one of the episodes that I wanted to speak about because I really like that adrenaline pumping that is incorporated with this episode, and I love the entire second half, which we're kind of getting into now.
Right.
What you were saying.
Because the emotions start to ramp up from here.
But it's not only just ramp up in this episode; it's ramp up in this companion-doctor relationship. This is the beginning of something beautiful between that we haven't really seen yet so far. And for people who were big Rose fans, having a really hard time letting Rose go, I think this was probably the episode where maybe they let her go and took Martha into their hearts,
Because there is that moment, she's freaked out. And then she's, they have that emotional moment in the windows. And then she says, I'm sorry. And that's just so heartbreaking. But then she starts talking and she still believes he's going to save them. And the guy is like, there's not a chance. And as a viewer, you're also thinking, how are you going to get out of this? But she's still steadfast, going, no, it's the doctor. He will save us.
And she even says, I believe in him.
Yep. It's great.
Natural.
And that's almost a medical thing, too. Like when you're in a panic situation and there's literally nothing you can do, the best thing to do is sort of, talk to each other, stay calm, maybe don't focus on the crisis. And I thought it was nice that they had that little bonding moment. Riley is his name.
Mm-hmm.
It's like bonding in peril.
I'm going to take the other side.
I'm interested. No, I'm cool with that.
In that, what I really liked about Martha near the beginning was, as we're trying to find a better word for it, but her skepticism. Once she understood what was going on, she was on board. But she didn't just blindly believe. And she's gotten to that point in this episode is a turning point where she blindly believes the doctor. And to me, that's scary for somebody
Do you think?
who analyzes so many things.
But she's mentioned it before.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
does, but
but
it goes not just believe in him.
But I don't
'cause
see
we
it
all
as
like
blind.
that.
I don't see it as blind though, because she's seen what the doctor's capable of. Well, for me, I'm okay with the moment because Martha has no other resources at this point. She's literally on a lifeboat.
And people find religion when there's nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's like people who are atheists start praying to God when they're about to die.
Well,
that's why there's
that kind of a
There's no
thing.
atheists in
Arlene would have
foxholes.
loved this.
No,
Yeah.
right?
Let's call her.
But for me, it's like Martha. This is what the 7th episode in the season. So Martha's seen all these other things, like she's seen Alien, she's seen Shakespeare.
I know, that's how you see it in everybody else at the table.
That's
So
what I'm
that's
saying.
why I wanted to bring up the different point of view
I
there.
appreciate
Gotcha.
that.
Been nudging at me. It's like nobody's all one way or the other, but it's like that's something that I noticed in this.
And I'm not just doing this to disagree with you. I'm doing this to agree with you. She has said before that she believes in the doctor completely. And
Right.
in those instances, it was because what she had seen previously.
And that's
Right.
what I'm saying.
But I kind of am now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I'm seeing Frank's side where not in this case.
Watch how she delivers that line. I believe in him. And she's looking out the window. She's not looking at Riley. It's not part of the discussion. It is. That's where I think it's shifted for.
I think the situation is a little bit more. I mean, in those other situations, it's like, ooh, we're in trouble. This situation, there's no hope. And she still says, I believe in the doctor. I think it does at that point. I have faith in the doctor. Because Rose felt the same way too. Rose would have said it in this instance. But Rose, she comes to that conclusion in a different process than Martha does.
And to me, that process is she loves the doctor.
Yes.
And Martha's infatuated, but at this point it switches over to that's not why she's doing it. She's gone to a different way. It's because of the faith in the doctor rather than the love of the doctor. So we can move on, or Josh, go on.
Just to find out, like I'm agreeing with Eugene, where I think you're right as well. But that's what it took for her to see it that way, is to be at the total end of a rope.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to point it out, I think it's Riley that says it. It's the prettier it looks, the more
Yeah.
likely it'll kill you. That reminded me of Robotech with Rick Hunter. He's looking out at a space battle, and it's all like fireworks and explosions, and it's like it looks pretty until it starts to surround you, and then it's all gonna kill you.
I was thinking more of like a tree frog, but yeah. That works.
Hey, colorful snakes will kill you dead.
They're more attractive. That's why they're colorful. Corwin finds the captain and is about to kill her, but hesitates. He says it's her fault and she must burn with him. She backs up and leads him to a cooling vent that is activated by Scannell, killing Corwin. Meanwhile, Ashton is attacking the doctor, but then screams in pain when Corwin is smothered with the coolant and leaves.
I am very tired of the cliche of all aliens are interconnected. It just bothers me a lot.
Well, this is the thing on this, though, is it was all the same alien. It wasn't more than one alien. It was
I know.
Particles of one being.
Yeah, but to me, it's still a
has-
cliche.
I see what you're
And
saying.
Would
it's
your
like-
toe hurt
and
if your finger was cut off?
I don't know.
You know, that connection.
he's about to kill the doctor. Wow, excellent timing.
Right.
That's what makes it a cliche.
It's yes, it's
You know,
very
and
convenient.
so it's just kind of like, well, that's convenient.
And the doctor could have just easily found a way to stop him.
I did find it very, I guess, naive of the doctor to walk right up to him and not even take a moment to cover himself.
It's
or
the
like,
doctor's curiosity. I want to know
no,
what's in
I
there.
like it as a character moment, but it felt a little.
He's done a lot of things like that before, though.
Yeah.
And he will continue to do things like
Yes.
that in future episodes. It does not make any sense, but it's just a thing he
Well, I guess too the thing that he does at the end of the episode is just as dangerous.
Right, and obviously can't talk about that yet.
No.
But what ties into that is Corwin and Kath have a quasi conversation almost. She says, "I'm your wife," and
He pauses.
He pauses and he says, "Your wife?" Like he actually
Yeah, there's intelligence
speaks.
there.
Yeah, which we'll see later. And so it implies that they must have had a very strong relationship. Obviously, it doesn't work.
I think when we get to it, that's what I was thinking that for a while, but I think it's not.
And for me, this scene reminds me of RoboCop, where Lois talks to Murphy, and she's like, "Remember me?" And he pauses and remembers, and then that's the way that the humanity is coming back.
Right.
This reminded me of that a lot.
And I think that's what you're supposed to think in
Yeah.
this moment. I think that's what this moment is, but it's a mislead.
So you're saying I fell for the mislead, eh?
Yeah, well, so did I. So did I.
So what is the mislead?
Well, we can't
we
say
can't
because we
say
haven't
it.
gotten there yet.
Well,
I mean, it's possible he could just be saying, "My wife." Like, what's
My
that?
wife.
He likes Borat.
Riley tells Martha there is nothing anyone can do to help them. They will be pulled into the sun soon. She looks out the window and says she believes in the doctor. Martha calls her mother, who is with a strange woman that is trying to trace the call. She tells Francine to keep Martha on the line, but when she asks if the doctor is there, Martha says her goodbyes and hangs up. This kills me. It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And just for Martha, when she's like, just tell me about your ordinary day. What'd you have for breakfast? What'd you watch on TV? And she's, tears are rolling down her face. It's like, oh, it just kills me.
I like too that Riley's the one that suggested to call her.
Did you? To me, it seems a little weird. It's like,
he
hi,
saw-
I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
But he
and
saw
out-
her call her when they were doing the thing.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So
Thank you.
yeah, because I thought the same thing. I was like, how does he know to call her? How does he know to call her? And then but he's the one that during the pub trivia.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
needed that.
But I was also thinking, wouldn't you want to offer Riley to call his mom?
I thought that too.
Right? But
They kind of had that conversation
No,
where
they don't-
it's
He
has no one
over
to
in a
call.
relationship with her.
I know.
Things were said.
He
But
has
at the
no
same
one to call.
But at the same time, I wanted him to be
You're
able to call
42
somebody.
minutes here, pal.
I saw it more as I'm very hurt by the fact that my mother and I no longer have a relationship, and I don't want that. Like, I want you to have your
Yes.
closure.
I agree with that too.
So I think
I already said my goodbyes to my mom. I'm sorry, my mom.
One thing that bugs me is the reason Martha called.
Why?
What was the reason Martha called?
To say goodbye.
Yeah.
She didn't. She said
not to
in
say
the pod.
goodbye, to reach out to just to reach out and bond with her mom before so her
Tell her
mother
I
knew
love
she
her.
loved her. To tell her she loved her.
No, she
No.
called so that they wouldn't, so that she wouldn't just disappear. Is
That
what
they
she
would know
said.
she
was
died.
like, she has some excuse to her mom, like, oh, I'm out with mates. So now when I don't come home,
my mates killed me. It's fine.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. They're still going to wonder. They're still going
Well, I
to
said
be.
what
Mickey
happened
Smith
was-
guy that we got to look into.
I think actually what happened was Francine started to ask more about the doctor, and it just sort of took her out of the moment
Yeah.
and was like, I have to go.
Right. But
unravel.
it really does bug me. Martha called home because she said that her parents won't know where she is or what happened to her.
Right.
And she never went in with that.
Right.
I get that she just wanted to talk to her mom and get a little reassurance and connecting, but she didn't do what she said she was going to do.
I think you're right. I think her intention was to do that, but it didn't end up happening because her mom kept pressing about the doctor, and then she just sort of got taken out of the moment and got too upset and hung up.
Why is she so afraid to talk about him?
No, I think her mother was just like prodding, and it was just like...
Like, don't make me mad at you. I'm trying to love you right now.
kind of.
Was Martha afraid to talk about the doctor?
Yeah.
She was saying, well, I don't think she was. I think it was just, you're back on this. You're not even listening to me. I'm trying to... You're actually making me not love you.
I thought it was the doctor is way too much to explain in a short period of time.
There could be that too.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not what is important.
Right.
McDonald finds Ashton and lures him to the med bay, where she freezes his head in the stasis chamber, killing him. Against his better judgment, Scannell brings the doctor a spacesuit. The doctor leaves the ship and reaches the controls that remagnetize the hull, bringing the pod back to the ship. As he is looking at the sun, he realizes that it is alive. Part of it has now infected the doctor.
Great moment when he goes out there. And the door opens and he's standing there. A lot of suspense. There's a lot of suspenseful shots and moments for a show that has a ticking clock. But that whole journey of him from when he goes into the airlock to where the airlock opens up and he goes outside and he's struggling, and even when he gets infected and everything, like it was just great.
Because in the beginning he's determined to do it and he's scared.
Yeah.
And I like that. Again, Tennant pulls it off really well.
And then when he's out there, he says, I don't know how much I will save you. He said to her, he's so determined he's going to do this. He's like, I'll be okay, he says to Scannell. And then when he's out there, it's like he goes and he says, I don't know how much longer I can hang on.
He also does say, go on, my son. And that it's like, what does that mean? So I looked it up.
So confused.
When does he say that?
And when he's reaching for the thing. And he's like,
says it to
go
himself.
on, my son.
Oh, I see.
And so I looked that up. That is a soccer thing. And that is yelled at players used to will them on in the game.
Wow.
Now, is that
I don't know.
Is that S-O-N or S-U-N?
No, good point.
Well, I think that's the joy of it, really.
In the closed captioning, it says O-N. But that's, I wonder.
Or is that football or soccer?
Because it always
Because,
was like, what is he saying?
Is
I
the
don't get it.
doctor a soccer fan, football fan, or
It's
is
probably a very
Tennant?
commonly said thing over there.
For their culture.
Yeah.
Again, I'm on the other side. I didn't like that suspense too much because it seemed too fabricated, where he can barely reach the first button.
Why are the
Then he has to
controls
go
outside
past
the
it.
ship?
Exactly.
But then he has to go past it to barely reach the second button. Well, if you could reach the second button, you could have easily reached the first. And then he has to go past that again to get to the lever.
Right? But he's getting increasingly hotter. And the
So he's
pressure.
stretchable. He's melting and stretching.
But why are those controls outside the ship? Who would build that?
I think they were inside, but the guy crushed that panel. So now he can't.
The auxiliary
Yeah,
control.
this is like the manual.
Oh, I see. So
releases.
he shot the controls that control the bridge, and now they
Yes.
have to swing across.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't disagree with you, Frank, but I was so wrapped up in it at that point because of just the pace of the show and everything that it got
And the
me.
music is so
And the
great.
music, yeah.
This is where
Dun, dun,
That's
dun.
the
all the strange creatures crescendos. This is that piece of music right here.
and it's the 11th Doctor theme. How did I never put that together?
It's
Wow.
the beginning of the 11th
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the beginning.
because it is different.
You're holding your breath waiting for that part that never comes.
Yes.
Right.
I thought Scannell kind of, cheering him on was so out of character. Because Scannell's the one who was the
Like, don't
defeatist.
go.
But you can.
But even from the very beginning, the doctor's saying, you've given up before even trying. And that's who Scannell was.
But you
and
can see
continued all
the
way
change
through it.
in the doctor's facial expression when he says it. Like, well, if this guy just told me I can do it, then gosh darn it, I'm doing it right now. And he does.
And maybe
Which is great for the
that's-
doctor. Sorry.
Oh no, maybe that's Scannell's turning point. It took
It's his
seeing
Dunkirk
someone.
moment.
Yeah. Well, it's seeing the doctor go out there against
Yeah.
all odds to do this suicide mission that he was like.
Yeah, what's he going to
Maybe
say?
it's his turning
Yeah, I know it.
That's Scannell.
I told you so.
That's Scannell. That's who the character is.
I just feel like if every single person, and I'm thinking everyone may have noticed that was out of character. Yes. no,
Yeah.
maybe.
It's a little weird.
Then they must have done it
Deliberately.
deliberately. Yeah. Not that I totally understand what you're saying. It's definitely out of character. But I want to believe that it's character growth. That is what I want to believe. And I'm going to stick with it.
Maybe
I'm
he
looking
said
at
it.
it as this entire episode is in that moment. This is not a character study. It's what happens to people under pressure in that moment. He would be like, go for it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And yes, 30 seconds earlier, he was defeatist. But then he saw that the doctor started to do it and was like, yeah, all right, great, do
Saw
it.
the light.
Nice.
All of the lights.
Or since we didn't see his face, we didn't see the eye roll, and he was saying it sarcastic.
That could be it too.
When Martha and Riley board the ship, they find the doctor has glowing fire eyes, and he says to stay away.
I thought all the effects when the doctor got
yes.
and when he also got uninfected
Yes.
was great.
Spoilers.
Wow.
The doctor says it's McDonald's fault. She mined the sun, but didn't scan it for life. They scooped out its heart, and it's screaming in pain. Martha and McDonald carry the doctor to the stasis chamber so they can freeze it out of him.
Having the doctor warn everybody, like, I can kill you with my eyes or whatever. He didn't say it like that, but that was the gist.
message, yeah.
The message made me appreciate more Corin's character at the beginning when he was refusing to open his eyes. Everyone was like, open your eyes, open your eyes. He's like, I can't. And
Right.
it was like, he was about to be completely taken over by this alien, but in that moment, he still was himself, and he was doing everything he could to not to kill them.
Right. And he's just a human.
That should be the title of the episode. If looks
He's
could
just
kill.
a human. Oh,
When Corwin, was it?
Corwin?
Recognized his wife. I don't think it was Corwin recognizing his wife. I think it was the alien entity using Corwin's brain to understand that his wife is the one who's in charge, so she's the one who gave the orders, so it's her fault. It was the alien taking a moment to be like, oh, wife, it's your fault. Not, oh, wife, I remember you.
And the alien only knows wife at that moment, not McConnell or McDonald or whatever.
He just knows that the wife was in
was the
charge.
captain.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he knows that from
being-
manipulating the brain.
Yeah,
Or
just
just
from
being
inhabiting
able
the
to
brain.
read the brain.
From inhabiting the body.
Okay.
It's not until that moment that we first hear the lines, it's your fault.
Right.
Right.
So
Which
it
creeped
had
me
to
out
took-
the whole episode. Like, I've seen this episode before, but when I started watching most of it earlier today before we started recording, and I couldn't remember what that was about. And I just thought it was creepy as heck. Just the words didn't make sense. Burn with me, it's your fault. Well, obviously, I guess, the captain did something, but I couldn't remember what it was and stuff like that. There's just these, not haunting, but accusatory spook things coming from a ghost or alien.
Two things about the doctor in this moment. Number one, he is yelling. And I love to, I don't know why, I don't know if this is a guilty pleasure, but I love to see the doctor angry or out of control. And that which later turns into fear, which we rarely see the doctor. And he actually
Scary.
says, I'm scared. And it's like, okay, if the doctor's scared, then maybe we should all be crying right now. I don't know.
I'm wondering, is he scared because he's scared he's going to die, or is he scared because he's going to
kill
hurt
people.
everybody?
He's going to hurt everybody.
That's what my
I think.
thought was. That would be the doctor's mind frame. Is I don't want to be responsible for everybody's
Oh,
death.
yeah, it's because he already did do that.
Again. The second part of it is Martha gets really matriarchal and protective of him. Like, she starts yelling too, but not in an obnoxious way. Like, she in a taking charge kind of way. She's very concerned for him. She sees that he's panicking, and she knows what that means. She knows it. That means it's time for business,
Right.
And I really fell in love with her at that moment.
Yeah.
It's a great bit for Martha.
when they're trying to be like, oh, that won't work, you're going to kill him, when they're putting him in the machine and they're going to lower his body temp to like negative 200. And McDonald's like, you'll kill him. And she's like, he's an alien. If he says that he can survive it, he can survive it. I just like the way that Martha can, like, in one sentence, like, shoot down the naysayers, I guess.
Yeah, because if we're comparing this to the Impossible Planet two-parter, Rose is still unsure of telling people what to do, where Martha is very assured of what to do.
Or maybe in that moment, Rose would have been like, McDonald, why don't you go do this.
Rose is trying to figure out what they do and what's needed to be done. Exactly. Martha already knows. No, just because of the nature of the
and that's what
instance.
I'm trying to say, but I'm not articulating because for me, it's Rose has a different feeling in that episode than Martha does, and I can't exactly put my finger on it.
I can't either, but
there
I
is something
understand
there.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
I just can't put my finger on it.
Because Rose did tell the one person, "You're useless, go away."
Yes.
Oh.
Which episode with Rose you talking about?
Impossible Planet.
Your favorite
The
episode.
same Impossible Planet. The one who was infected. She's telling him, "You're useless, go away. You're not even trying."
Yeah, Toby.
Maybe it's that the Rose never had to see the doctor, at least not at that point, this vulnerable. He was kind of freaking out. And I don't know how Rose would have reacted to seeing the doctor so unsure and so scared. She might not have reacted the way Martha did.
Yeah.
The doctor tells Martha to set the machine to negative 200 degrees Celsius for 10 seconds. He tells Martha to vent the engines and give back what was scooped by the ship. Corwin shuts off power to the stasis chamber and McDonald runs down to engineering to re-establish it. She is blocked by Corwin and confesses to him that it was her fault. She leads him to the airlock where she tells him she is sorry and that she loves him. While hugging him, she opens the airlock, sending both to their deaths.
That's really great imagery during that part.
Yeah.
And it has the potential to be very cheesy, and it doesn't get there.
Right.
It stays right where it should, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think
They also use the same effect that they did in The Impossible Planet, Satan's Pit, with
the water
outside.
They filmed it in water.
So it had that same
nice.
look.
Okay.
Or maybe that's
that.
why, because
It
you know,
looked nice.
when people are on like suspension wires, like, you can tell
Yeah.
they're on wires,
Right.
and it just never looks right.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it looked so good.
But some behind the scenes of that scene, this was McDonald's, the actor, I don't know the name, but this was her first day. She did the death scene. So it's like, I would have never known that from the way she's acting in that. I think she did a great job.
Professional.
Yeah.
for me as a viewer, I feel like McDonald's sacrifice was made a little easier for that character because it was her husband was the bad guy, but wasn't her husband. Like, he was gone.
I also think, too, she was also taking out the person who killed her husband.
And I even like how they did it twice, because you know how they show it once and then they go from a different angle, show it again. And
Right,
sometimes
slow
I'm like, why are you doing that? But then this one, it worked.
The doctor can no longer fight what's inside him and shouts, "Burn with me." Martha reaches the front of the ship as Riley and Scannell open the last hatch. She orders them to vent the engines and dump the sun particles. As the particles return to the sun, the entity leaves the doctor and the engines return to normal, driving the ship away from danger. The Pentallian is safe and sends out a mayday. As the doctor and Martha leave, he gives her a key to the TARDIS. Martha calls her mom to tell her all is well. It's election day, and Martha agrees to come for tea later. The mysterious woman confiscates Francine's phone and says that Mr. Saxon is very grateful for her assistance.
I thought that was great when he gave her the key. I got actually a little choked up.
Yeah.
Me?
Took him long enough.
Right.
Good
Yeah.
Lord.
But the reaction she had, that's what kind of balanced out that she's gone to a whole faith-based belief, is that she's holding out the two hands
Oh, like
as
communion.
some kind of gift
Yeah.
from God kind of thing, that he's giving her the key.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, oh, good, I get to go. It was, honor me with your presence kind of faith.
I agree with you. I don't mind it. It sounds like you mind it. But I think considering where this character is going to be going that we can't talk about,
Right.
this is the start
This,
of that.
right. Wow, this really is the big change from the first half of this.
Yeah.
This.
But that's what it took.
series.
But I think, too, that's why, like, when she first got jettisoned in the pod, when she's just that raw panic, it was a life-changing moment to me.
Right, which is
with
pounding
that
on
character.
the glass.
I agree with you, but I think that's what they were going for, and that's what happened.
In the New Who universe, I feel like Martha is the least appreciated and coveted.
Yeah.
of
I agree.
Totally.
Totally agree.
Watching this episode this time round made her my favorite companion.
I almost feel like it's the show did that to her in a way, and this is my rationale for that. They made the doctor cold to her for a while, and we kind of go where the doctor goes and do what the doctor. We're easily manipulated as viewers, especially viewers who are getting over the loss of Rose, and the doctor's the way he treats her is sort of like now I see more as like that was mean, like that was a tease. But the first time I watched these episodes, I was like, yeah, don't give her the love that you gave Rose. She doesn't deserve it. Like she just waltzes in here, like, you know. So I feel like I was manipulated by the writing and the acting in the show, and now I can see it with a more clearer look, but. It's almost like they set her up for that, and she does not deserve it at all. I mean, good for her in a way that she probably... I don't know. What do you think that Freema resents that?
I don't think so.
No, because she's very popular on the convention circuit, and she also keeps coming back.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Fun.
I think too. There's a lot of meaty stuff for her in this season as an actress. All the stuff that we're talking about upon second viewing, that I think she got a good experience out of.
I think a lot of people just get hung up on her aspect of her character of pining after the doctor. That's not going to happen. Yeah. And they can't see everything else that's going on.
They're blind.
Well, also too, I think that's a very important part of her character too, considering all the other decisions she made, even especially in this one episode. Like, it changes. Her infatuation with him does change, even though her feelings like that never sort of go away, her romantic feelings, but she starts owning herself. So I almost think it's a very empowering role to be sucked into a romantic feelings and find your way out.
Which
without
Rose never ever could have done.
Right. Without the other person's influence. It was all her. She owned it.
I also don't think it's like anti-feminist for her to have a thing for the doctor. Like, who wouldn't? Oh my God. Like, the things he shows you and the things places he takes you, and he saves your life every other minute. And I think it's perfectly, it's a reasonable thing. If not to fall in love, to at least be infatuated. I don't think that should be such a ding against her character as people treat it that way.
Yeah, no.
I liked when she got to the final auxiliary engines and she's telling them, dump this, dump the pot, do all that. And they're all just standing around. Now it reverberates. You hear there's an echoing to it. It's I love that.
They added a reverb.
I just love that they added that reverberation to it. It just was fun.
And then shortly after that, we get the Star Trek shake where everybody.
And at the end, when everything's calmed down, Riley pulls her for a kiss. Is that right?
No, she kisses him.
Or does she kiss him?
Well,
I couldn't tell.
They have a moment.
It seemed like he pulled her in, but then was surprised that she's actually kissing back. That's how I kind of read it.
I'd have to watch it again. I'd have to watch it again.
I think she initiated and then appreciated what happened.
Initiated and appreciated.
Yes.
Well, when I saw it, I saw Riley wanting to have a moment just to kind of debrief with her and to make sure she's okay, but then she goes for the kiss. Okay. That's definitely what I saw.
And why the heck not? You're never going to see him again. He's hot. Do it. It's my opinion.
It was a great little scene, though.
Yeah.
I love her reaction.
And I feel like that scene with them in the pod, it wasn't too, sexy, cheesy in a way.
No, not at all.
But you really felt them bond in there. Mm-hmm. So it felt like it was very earned.
Yes.
Right.
They were in the trenches together.
Yes.
It was the blue light.
It was the blue light.
It's a blue light special.
She goes back into the TARDIS. And she makes a joke at the doctor, and he's very serious.
Yeah, what's that about?
It took a lot out of him.
Yeah.
I think. The parasite, the control. He did lose control at the end.
That he almost
would
killed
have
everyone
killed
again.
everybody if he had the chance.
Just like in the Time War.
And the only other time that we've ever seen the doctor in this kind of a state is emotionally depressed over Rose.
I'm taking it as he almost killed. He just was taken over and almost killed everybody, and
including Martha.
And it really shook him. And then, as he always does, before he actually says his feelings, except in that moment when he said he was scared,
right.
he becomes shakes it off.
Yeah.
To which she rolls her eyes like, "Oh, why won't you let me get close to you?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was more of the point of that scene, is Martha.
Yeah.
In that he's not going to be real with me. He's not going to tell me the truth. she doesn't play those kind of games. And so he goes, well, how about going, ice skating? Whatever. You're obviously in charge, and you're not going to share that part with me.
And
I think it was her reaction.
It was especially disappointing to her because she had just made a breakthrough with the key.
And Josh,
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this moment for a little bit. We're introduced to a new theme right at the very end with the mysterious people in Francine's house. Mm-hmm. So going forward,
this is where
the answer to your question of where do we hear this theme the first time is 42.
Okay.
That's all we'll say.
Do you know the name of the piece?
That's all we'll say.
Okay. Very good. Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know.
That's why we didn't want to
I
say.
have to listen again.
Some behind the scenes, some production stuff, I guess. Martha was originally going to be the one infected instead of the doctor. And Russell said, go a little further, make it the doctor that gets infected.
Glad they switched that.
Yes.
And they also said that the future episodes are the hardest to write because every future episode that you write is reflective of the time you're writing it in. Like if you go back to the 70s, it looks like the future from the 70s.
Yeah.
Riley is named after Chris Chibnall's godson.
Oh.
Who is this episode good for? Meaning, this episode is good for who?
Well, I'll start. I think it's good for everybody. I think it's good for a casual fan. There's a lot of stuff in there for us. Every incarnation of us. It's good for a casual fan. It's good for fans. Good for a diehard. It's got all that meat. But I think this is an exciting episode. You get the funny doctor in the beginning, and then he turns serious, and then all the action.
The effect of the doctor's eyes going when the alien leaves the doctor.
When he leaves.
Josh and I really liked the way that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, too, it could have been really cheesy, and
Yeah.
it just came because he's got such big. David Tennant has such big eyes as anyway. So when that effect went from light to sort of like sparkly to him,
To gray. It was like
Like a
clouded
blind,
out.
like
Yeah,
a cataract almost.
Right.
it just looked good. It was, creepy.
And Tennant sold it.
Yeah,
I mean,
he sold, and you never see the doctor in that much agony before, so you get a lot of good tastes of stuff, and it was a really good episode. I think there's good companion stuff. It hints at the character development you were talking about. You like more of, but it was a very realistic portrayal of the people. I think it's not too Doctor Who-y for people who have never seen it, but you get a good taste of what that's about. Yeah.
Because I never really liked this episode and it's not an episode that I go back and watch, I never thought about it as a good introductory episode. Up until this point, I've really enjoyed Martha. Did not like her so much in this episode. There are a few moments that I just, like Frank, I thought were uncharacteristic of her. And the doctor was off. But I did like that the villain it makes sense. Like, the way they solve the problem makes sense. Like, I don't like it when the doctor does something to save the day and it's way over my head and I can't understand how he got to that point. So, Josh, I'm glad that you put this in a category for a new Who viewer because I feel confident about now doing the same. I'm going to say it's good for everybody.
I'm going to piggyback on you guys because like I mentioned before, I really wanted to talk about this episode. And I think it's be great for a new Who. Now, there's a lot of stuff they're not going to understand. There's an evolution in character that they're not going to get. But that doesn't bother me at all. Sort of my origin story that I explained last episode. I came in at an episode where it was really helpful to know things, and I knew nothing. But rather than making me confused and frustrated, I just wanted answers immediately. And I immediately went back and started watching. It worked on me. And I feel like this is one of those episodes where I would watch it and I'd be like, holy crap, I need to know what this is all about. And if this was my first episode, I definitely would have started the show. I like that it's fast. I would have soon discovered that it's not always as fast. But I think that I would have been okay because I would have been trying to get to this point and answer all these questions. And I think it was just interesting and captivating enough to where anyone would want to see more. That's my opinion. So I agree with you guys. I think a new Who, a first-time viewer, could start at this episode to whet their appetite for more.
It's cool hearing someone new say new Who.
I mean, it is definitely quick, fast paced for somebody who wouldn't be able to sit through some of the more like thoughtful episodes, this one could get them interested in Doctor Who. But yeah, I still don't think that I would personally suggest this episode if somebody came to me and said, Doctor Who, what should I watch first? Like, this is not going to be on my list. So I'm going to go with casual viewer for this episode.
I know that it says 42. So the feel of it is so reminiscent of Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit that it feels like it should be a two-parter. So a lot of my critiques came from really studying that as we're going through it. It's a very fast-paced episode. So I liked it a lot more just watching it. But the other way you see a lot of the other flaws, which really brings it down. Mm-hmm. And so I would not put it for a new viewer, but it's going up to casual viewer for me. I think it is something, and I get your point of showing somebody this new one because it is a fast pace. I think a lot of people now, if they're going for it, are looking more for a bit more fast paced, storyline. Because you watch some of the old 70s and classic, they are a lot slower.
I think it's a good episode for a new Who viewer who's a bit skeptical. Like, isn't that silly, show? This is a little more mainstream, this episode.
The trick is to get them to fall in love with the characters so that they can look past
the silliness.
Right. And this is a serious episode.
I think this is a little bit more of a universal show for someone.
Where with the other episodes being more geared towards a younger audience that Martha has.
Especially
this one
season.
isn't.
This is the most serious one yet of the season.
So it has, I would introduce other episodes to people before this. So I'm going to go casual, the second group that we have.
I don't think this would be an episode that I would start with a new Who viewer. However, with that said, I think if a person found this episode first, I think this would hook them in. So I will put it in the category of a new Who viewer. I personally wouldn't do it, but I totally get people who would fall in love with Doctor Who on this. This is a roller coaster. It's got tension. Okay, we may not get into the characterization of every single crew member, but we do get a lot. There's a lot of good Martha and Doctor stuff. There's a lot of good Martha on her own stuff. Again, it just kind of grabs you and never lets go for 42 minutes. And also, I think that a person might really enjoy the episode and then just go, what's going on with the phone call? And kind of get intrigued in that.
Yeah.
And go, I need to figure that out.
I like what you said about the characterization. Because, the other episodes, there is more. But watching it just for the enjoyment of watching the show, there is enough where the actors know who they are.
Yeah.
So the characterization of who that person is comes across really well in such a short period of time. I just wanted more.
For me, this episode has a lot of things that I want to point out. There is very much the parallels between this and Sunshine, and myself and Brian have a lot of Sunshine love.
The movie Sunshine.
Yeah, the movie Sunshine.
Auburn likes that movie.
Well,
The first two acts.
Yeah. Well, because
Thank you.
because for me and Brian, it's an inside joke of Michelle Yeoh dies.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh dies.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Movie's
Was that
been
a
out.
spoiler?
That's what it's supposed to be.
That's what it means.
There's no use of the sonic screwdriver. There's no use of the TARDIS. This was meant to be their cheap episode, but they put more money into it. And this is also the first episode what takes place entirely on a spaceship.
No, but it's not, because it's in her bedroom as well.
No, that's last episode.
That's the other episode.
I guess we do
But at
go
the end
into
of the
the mom's
episode-
house, though.
But the main characters, the Martha and the Doctor, are on the
never leave
spaceship
the
the whole time.
Oh, wait, where does he give her the key? On the TARDIS?
In the TARDIS console.
The TARDIS is on the spaceship.
Us on the spaceship, see? So there are a lot of things that this episode does that are not necessarily in the format, you would say, of the season. So I think that makes it stand out more, and the fact that it's almost told in real time. And I would use this to introduce it to a new Who viewer. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. So you've heard our thoughts. What do you think about Rose in the Impossible Planet Satan Pit two-parter and Martha in 42, and how they take charge of what the crew is? What do you think is the thing that separates those two? Let us know. Email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again to Heather for joining us. We hope to see her next time when we do Doctor Who Trivia.
We hope to see her next time when
When
the future becomes the present. You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook
at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by our very own Auburn.
Find me at auburnbinkley.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcasts.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
the longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Pausing for dog.
Sounds like an album
He just wants
name.
to be a part of our podcast.
The new album by Who Knew? Pausing for Dog.
I thought you meant like pause for dog.
Look at that.
Pause for dog? Oh,
They
like
pause.
pause.
Welcome to the party.
Thank you.